All of Y Combinator's advice can be bundled up into 22 essential rules. In this video series, I will break down every single one of these rules that all startups should master. So stick around because you don't want to miss this next one. Co-founder breakups kill more startups than competitors do. The truth is, most startups don't die from homicide, they die from suicide. My name is Arjun, CEO and founder of Doola, a Y Combinator-backed startup. In so many things in life, whether it's a co-founder relationship or a relationship in a team or a relationship outside of work, you ignore the relationship because you are busy. What that means is resentment builds in silence. Instead, what is hard to do, and I think this is like a muscle that anyone has to build and practice, otherwise it atrophies, is having open, hard conversations as frequently as possible. And the mindset here is working on the relationship as hard as you would work on the product. Let me give you an analogy, and then I want to share an actual example of how we implement this at Doola. Think of pilots in a cockpit. If the engine in the plane fails, a good team can still glide the plane. But if the pilots start fighting and wrestling for the controls, it doesn't matter how good the plane is and how good the engine is. The plane crashes, period. Here's a hot take. I think that every problem in business has been solved. Ultimately in life, I believe that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Every Olympian has the same goal, to win gold, but not every Olympian does. The systems, the training, the meal plan, the regimen, and yes, there's luck, but ultimately in life, everyone has luck. I think top performers get more return on luck. My point here is that the relationships matter. So let's say your goal is, I want to maintain good relationships. And not to get too meta here, but this can apply for any type of relationship. The system is, what are you doing on a consistent basis to provide feedback, to avoid resentment building? I like to think of this as, if you push things under the rug, that's okay. It starts with a speck of dust. But if every day, imagine you're sweeping the floor and you keep putting the dust under the rug, eventually that rug and the mound will build to a point where you might walk by one day, trip and break your face. So at a company, a system that you can implement is pulses. This can be, and the system we actually use at Doola, are weekly one-on-ones and quarterly check-ins. Weekly one-on-ones are a way to have a weekly pulse, and it can be as simple as at the end of your one-on-one doc, having a section called like and wish that. Here are things that I liked, here are things that I wish that were different. And even if there's nothing in a given week, every week when you look at the doc, you have to look at those sections and ask yourself, is there anything I can share, micro or macro? There still might be surprises, but it's better than it never coming. Next, you can have quarterly check-ins. That can be a way to zoom out even more, to go out of the office, or to just really zoom out and say, hey, at a quarterly level, what's working and what's not working. Now, I've talked about this in terms of relationships, maybe in a business, but I do think that founder relationships outside of business work, having relationships with other founders. And here's why. I think that your problem is not unique. I think that if you're stressed about a problem in your business, there is someone who has solved it probably 100 times at 100 different businesses. What that means is I've completely flipped my mindset from, if there's a problem I'm facing, there is someone out there, probably in my network, who has solved this exact problem before. And instead of me thinking, holy crap, I have to figure this out on my own, maybe a coach can help. Maybe a founder friend can help. Maybe Bookface on Y Combinator can help. If you take that mindset, you then realize it's so important to cultivate and build those relationships with other founders. I think a really cool thing about Y Combinator is you have access to the network. But even if you're not in Y Combinator, you can find these communities online. Social groups, Reddit communities, friends that are actually building. Doola has a community. This is how you can find and build with other founders. Remember, at the end of the day, relationships do matter. You need to work on them as hard as you work on the product itself. And remember, if you push things under the rug for too long, the mound builds and you might trip and fall. That is rule number 17. To see the full set of 22 rules that make up the Y Combinator Pocket Guide, watch this video next.